Hello, this is Adam again, and I'm starting a new series for BookTube on some of my favorite Agatha Christie books that I've read. In fact, what I'm going to do in this series is I'm going to count down my 15 favorite Agatha Christie novels and make a short video about each of the Agatha Christie novels that are in my top 15. I have read over 60 of Agatha Christie's novels. After I had read an initial 5 or 6 Agatha Christie novels, I really enjoyed every one that I read, and I just thought it would be very interesting to make track of her progress as a writer, and start at the very beginning and read through all the Agatha Christie novels because I enjoyed them so much in chronological order, starting with her first one, which was in 1920, The Mysterious Affair at Styles, and not including her romance novels that she wrote under the pseudonym of Mary Westmacott, but reading all of her Poirot novels, all of her Marple novels, all of her Tommy and Tuppence novels, all of her standalone novels, and including all of her short story collections, reading those all in order until I get to the very end of the chronology. And I'm not done yet. There are still some Agatha Christie novels that I have yet to read. I'm into the 1960s. The next one that I'm due to read is called The Mirror Cracked from Side to Side. But after having read about 60 of them, I feel it's a good point for me at this point to stop and do a ranking video of my 15 favorite Agatha Christie novels. So like I said, I'm going to make short videos about each of these and tell you why I like these Agatha Christie novels, and just tell you a little bit about why I think you'd like them too. And I know that you guys all won't necessarily agree with the choices that I make, but let's face it, that's part of the fun, is to debate this. And so I would really appreciate your guys' input and feedback on this. If you have any comments, if you want to stick up for one of your favorite Agatha Christie novels, please feel free to drop me a comment and we can discuss your rankings and my rankings a little bit more in depth. This is a good time to ask you that you would subscribe to my channel and click the like button also, and the bell for further notifications. I'm going to try and make these videos maybe even a couple a week, so we can get through these pretty rapidly. And let's begin. I hope you enjoyed this video series, and I hope you find it entertaining, and I hope you will have some questions for me, because I'd like to have a little bit of interaction here. Okay, so without any further ado, my number 15 favorite Agatha Christie novel that I've read so far is actually a standalone. We're going to start with a standalone, and it's one that's not really, you don't hear a lot about on BookTube. It's not one of her more popular ones, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it is The Seven Dials Mystery. And it was written in 1929. Now it's categorized, so the Christie novels are always categorized by the detective who is the main character in the story. So there's mostly Poirot, and there's mostly, and then the next most common detective after Poirot is Miss Marple. And then there is also Tommy and Tuppence. But even though this is, and the rest get kind of just lumped into a standalone category, this is not necessarily really just a standalone all by itself, because it does have characters who are in another earlier story. So the main character in this story is Lady Eileen Brent, and so she is a wealthy young lady who's more commonly known by the nickname that she has, and that is Bundle. She goes by Bundle, and so Bundle Brent. But this is not the first time that we've seen her in an Agatha Christie story. In fact, about 4 years prior to this, Christie wrote The Secret of the Chimneys story, and Lady Eileen, or Bundle, was in this story as well. These stories are fun-loving. They are lighthearted. So The Secret of Chimneys was written in 1925, and The Seven Dials Mystery was written in 1929. So this is pretty early in Agatha Christie's writing career, so she has had some success. She has had a few Poirot novels. She's also had some short story collections. She has not done any Marples yet, so this is still where she's trying to find her identity as a mystery writer. She has had one Tommy and Tuppence book that she's written before she wrote The Secret of the Chimneys. So Lady Eileen is early in her career, and it's kind of interesting that these two stories that have Bundle and Bundle's friends, who I'm gonna get to in just a moment, this is it. This is it for Bundle Brent, which I think is a little bit sad. I like both of these books. I like The Seven Dials Mystery better than I like The Secret of Chimneys. It won't be showing up later as we get further into this video series. I like Seven Dials mystery better than the Secret of Chimneys, but I do really like Bundle Brent as a main character, and it would have been nice to have her in some more Agatha Christie novels or even short stories. But this is going to be it for Bundle Brent. These are really lighthearted, fun-loving stories. Uh, Even though Lady Eileen is the major character, Bundle is the main character, the detective is Superintendent Battle, who works at Scotland Yard. And we see him, I believe he's in about 5 of the Agatha Christie novels, both of these two that have Bundle Brent and her friends, but then also he shows up in some later novels that don't have Bundle in them, like Towards Zero would be an example of another novel that mystery that the Superintendent Battle is in. Superintendent Battle is a really good contrast to Bundle, because Superintendent Battle is very serious. He's devoted to his work. He is described as somebody who has no emotions about things. He's just cool and logical, hardworking, wants to get the job done. He'll never give up on a case. But he's actually described as being kind of wooden, even in the descriptions of the story. I'll get to the plot of the story in just a minute. Some of the other characters who are really important in this story. So Bundle she lives at a place called Chimneys, which The Secret of the Chimneys, the previous book was about what was happening at the big estate that she lived on. And so she lives at an estate called Chimneys. Chimneys has actually been sold early in the story to a family called the Coots. But for the while, the Brents are staying there, and they've been allowed by the Coots to invite some of their friends to come down and stay at the Chimneys for a weekend. So, and Bundle and her friends are they're young, and they're in their 20s. This is the period in American history, at least it's known as the Roaring Twenties. And so you get this idea that, there's a lot of fun times. There's a lot of joviality. I've often heard these two books, and actually more of the books of the 1920s that Agatha Christie writes, as being very similar to the Wodehouse series, the Jeeves and Wooster series, if you're familiar with those. Just very lighthearted and carefree. And Agatha will definitely have some more serious dark and depressing stories later in her career, but at least at this time in her writing career, she's she's having fun with her craft. She's learning how to perfect her craft. She's learning how to become a better writer, make her mysteries more exciting and make her mysteries more interesting and thrilling. She's early in her career, and so they're just real lighthearted, fun stories. So Bundle's father is Lord Caterham. He's the 9th Earl, the 9th Marquis of Caterham. And so he's just mostly known as Lord Caterham in the story. He's a real interesting person. And one of the themes in this story is just kind of the differences between generations. And so Lord Caterham doesn't necessarily try to even understand the ways that his daughter and her friends go about living their life. And so he doesn't even try to pretend to understand them, and he's just like, they're from a different generation, and that different generation is not my that younger generation is not my generation. I can't explain to you or understand why they behave the way that they do. And so he just wants to be left alone with that, and just kind of he wants to live a life of ease. One of my favorite things in this story is the interplay between Lord Caterham and Bundle. And I'll read just a little short excerpt from this so you can kind of get the idea of the dialogue between them. And for me, it's one of my favorite parts of this story. It's just real lighthearted. Treadwell's the butler. Treadwell told me something else rather odd about the clocks, continued Lord Caterham, who was now quite enjoying himself. It seems that somebody collected them all and put them in a row on the mantelpiece after the poor fellow was dead. Well, why not? Said Bundle. I don't see why not myself, said Lord Caterham, but apparently there was some fuss about it. No one would own up to having done it, you see. All the servants were questioned and swore they hadn't touched the beastly things. In fact, it was rather a mystery. And then the coroner asked questions at the inquest, and you know how difficult it is to explain things to the people of that class. Perfectly foul, agreed Bundle. Of course, said Lord Caterham. It's very difficult to get the hang of things afterwards. I didn't quite see the point of half the things Treadwell told me. By the way, Bundle, the fellow died in your room. Bundle made a grimace. Why need people die in my room? She asked with some indignation. That's just what I've been saying, said Lord Caterham in triumph. Inconsiderate. Everybody's damned inconsiderate nowadays. Not that I mind, said Bundle valiantly. Why should I? I should, said her father. I should mind very much. I should dream things, spectral hands and clanking chains. Well, said Bundle, great Aunt Louisa died in your bed. I wonder you don't see her spook hovering over you. I do sometimes, said Lord Caterham, shuddering, especially after lobster. Well, thank heavens I'm not superstitious, said Bundle. So you see one of the themes of this book is just the differences between the generations, and Agatha Christie's painting the contrast in a fun way. So Lord Caterham is a really interesting character. And in the movie version of this that I've seen, the one movie version of this that they have that I know of is Sir John Gielgud played Lord Caterham. And as you can imagine, if you know anything about John Gielgud, he just did an excellent job in that role. Okay, some of the other main characters in the story besides Superintendent Battle and Bundle and her father are Bill Eversley, who works for the Foreign Office. And so he is one of Bundle's close friends. And then there's Bill Eversley's boss, whose name is George Lomax. And both Bill and George were also in The Secret of Chimneys. George Lomax is Bill's boss at the Foreign Office, and George is very serious and straight-laced, and he's very career-minded. And we eventually find out later on that he wants to marry Bundle, but he wants to marry her for his career because he thinks that she would be someone who would be a good politician's wife, and she comes from a proper family. And some of the other main characters in the story are, again, these are friends of Bundle and Bill. I already said him. Ronnie Devereaux and Gerald Wade, and a person with a kind of an unusual name, Rupert Bateman, but they call him Pongo. He goes by the nickname Pongo, and he's kind of one of those people who's kind of a source of fun, and other people, he takes himself seriously, and other people kind of make fun of him taking himself so seriously. Okay, now, so what is this story about? I've told you the characters and just a little bit about what the story is about. So all the friends come over to Chimneys, and they're staying there for the weekend. And Gerald Wade, who works in the Foreign Office along with Bill and George Lomax, Gerald Wade has a tendency to sleep in late and not get up until almost nearly noon, which is very difficult on the staff at Chimneys, because if they're trying to serve breakfast and he hasn't had his breakfast yet because he's sleeping in so late, they're ready to set the table for lunch so other people can have lunch, and he's still asleep. It's causing some consternation among the servants. And so his friends decide to play a trick on him. They go into town nearby and they buy 8 alarm clocks. And they're going to set them so they all go off consecutively at 6:30 in the morning. And then they're going to place them underneath his bed. And so then they'll all go off one after another. So it'll be a chain reaction of alarm clocks. And certainly that will get Gerald Wade to wake up. So it's all set, and they go about doing this. And then the next morning, they find out that what they thought was going to be a great trick ends up with Gerald Wade being dead in his bed. Now, of course, the alarm clocks didn't kill him. Apparently, after they have the investigation, they find out that he actually died of an overdose of taking a sleeping draught, and so he is dead accidentally. It's an accidental death. Now, Bundle and some of her other friends, especially Ronnie and Jimmy, suspect that maybe he didn't overdose. Maybe he was. Maybe there was some foul play, and so there's a little bit more of a concern about that. And it just so I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Bundle, one of the things that she does, because she's young and she's in her 20s, is she drives really, really fast. And so she takes her car out one day, and she's driving, and she's going to drive into London. And on her way into London, she's driving very, very fast, like she always does, and she sees a man springing out of the bushes right in front of her car. And so she slams on the brakes, and she thinks that she's hit and killed the man who jumped out of the bushes. So she runs back to find him, and as it turns out, it is Ronnie Devereaux. And as he didn't get hit by the car, as it turns out, but he is close to death. And he says to Bundle as he's dying, he says to her, 7 Dials Club. And then he says, tell Jimmy Thesiger. and then he dies. And Bundle discovers that he was actually shot, that he didn't die because she struck him with her car. He was shot. And so these last words are kind of eerie. So now we have two people who have died. Both Gerald Wade and Ronnie Devereaux are dead. And Bundle Brent now suspects that there's something that's really unusual going on. And it has something to do with this Seven Dials Club, which, as we find out in the story, is a mysterious secret society. So this is more of a, not so much of a murder mystery, it's more of a thriller, I guess. And you're trying to figure out the clues that now obviously people have been killed, and so you're going to have a murderer, and you're going to have it is a detective story. Detective Battle will be there, and he will be the one who actually solves the murder. But it's more of a lighthearted thriller. Again, it's very much in the Wodehousian tradition, Jeeves and Wooster, if you're familiar with those books that were written, about that same time. So it's a lighthearted story. It's a really good story. Why do I like it so much? Again, I like it because of all these books that I'm going to include on my top 15 books. It's going to be because the characterization is really good, and because the detective story is really, really interesting. If it just has one or the other, where the characterization is really, really good, I like those stories, and those might be in maybe my top 20 or my top 25, but they're not going to be high enough to be in the top 15. It's got to have really good characterization, and then it's also got to have a really cracking detective mystery. And so those two elements are going to be, I'm going to repeat that over and over again in this series of my 15 favorite Agatha Christie novels. They're just going to be the ones that have really good characterization, where the characters are interesting and you like the characters, and then there's something really compelling about the detective mystery. And so again, if you haven't read the Seven Dials Mystery, I would encourage you to read it. One of the things that's great about Agatha Christie, her books are so easy to read. They're so lighthearted. I read a lot of heavy nonfiction books and a lot of classics. For instance, right now I'm reading a Charles Dickens novel. Those take me quite a while to get through, just because they're dense and they're long. But Agatha Christie, you can read them in 2 or 3 days, and they're just a lot of fun. And so Seven Dials Mystery is my number 15, and we'll be back soon to talk about book number 14. Hope you're having a great day. Leave some comments below so we can discuss the Seven Dials Mystery or anything Agatha Christie related.